Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Shamik.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to be here.
I like that you're sitting on top of the world there, Shamik.
Uh, we always want to do that, right? It's
We
always a pet project.
do. So we've got a very interesting subject tonight, which is building new habits, Shamik. Now, what did you have in mind about this subject, which I think you have a lot of information about?
Yeah, absolutely. So here in Australia, so I'm currently broadcasting today from the southeastern part of Australia. I'm in the ACT capital region, south of New South Wales, and it's still pretty chilly. But here in Australia, this is the final stage of the winter, depending on where the rest of the participants are logging in from. It may be summer in certain parts of the world. I know in the northern hemisphere, it certainly is. It could be warm or very warm in some parts of the world. But here in Australia, it is the final stages of winter. And typically, we start thinking about spring and building new habits in spring and getting rid of some of the bad habits that may have developed over winter. So, as an example, I have a pet Shih Tzu, and my Shih Tzu has become quite lazy over winter. And we are definitely thinking of starting a fitness routine for my pet dog so she can lose some extra winter pounds in the spring and the summer ahead. But what I find, and just a few words of introduction about myself. I've been practicing this form of meditation, Sahaja Yoga meditation, for about 20 years now. And through that time, I've been a technology professional. So meditation is really for the weekends and the weeknights. Whereas in my daytime, I'm a working professional working on technology projects. And one of the things that we find, at least at work, is that changing behavior is actually very, very difficult. And especially if you want to change behavior of larger groups of people, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands, that kind of change is actually really complicated. So, one approach that has started to gain traction is to introduce small changes over time. Let's call them atomic habits or micro changes, and see how they start to stick and leads us on to significant positive outcomes. So, just as an example, today our hope would be to have a wonderful meditation session. And the micro change that we could consider in our personal lives is to set aside 10, maybe 15 minutes every morning, and maybe 5 minutes or 7 minutes every evening for our own personal wellness. So I'll call it our personal quiet time when we can meditate, introspect, get rid of all that is negative, and embrace all that is positive. If we can make that one micro change, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, I am personally confident with my 20 years of experience that it can have an outsized impact on our health and wellness. So that would be the precursor. And Lynn, if you're okay, then maybe I can request our audience tonight and this afternoon to start off with I'll call it a getting ready meditation session, just so that we can kind of stretch our muscles and make sure that we are prepared for what's ahead during this session. Does that make sense?
That's perfect sense, Shamik. Like the sound of
Excellent.
that.
So I used to practice yoga before I started my journey of meditation. And one of the things that I learned was posture is important. So wherever we are, I can see Lynn is on a chair.
Mm-hmm.
Chair is just fine. If you are finding yourself in the cross-legged, typical yogic posture or the Padmasana, that's fine as well. But the goal would be to try and keep the back straight,
Mm.
because during our meditation session, we'll try to make sure that the axis, which is roughly corresponding to the spinal cord of the body, is perpendicular to the ground. So whether we are seated on a chair or whether we are seated on the floor, the back we want to keep straight. And we don't want to introduce any kind of tension, so we don't really need to tense our muscles. So, as loose and supple as we possibly can be. We want to keep the hands palm facing upwards on the lap. and we want to be very relaxed as we just get ourselves ready. So we can close our eyes if we are comfortable. We can have the eyes open as well. Either which way works. But let's start by taking a few deep breaths. Have the hands open. And we don't really need to analyze the posture or the why of the actions. But let's assume for a few minutes, as we settle into a more relaxed frame of mind, that this first phase is really about paying attention to ourselves. Whether we are in a suburban setting or urban setting, or even in a rural setting, we find that our attention is really confused with all forms of information.
We're just going to shut the door.
And at this time, we just want to make time for ourselves. So let's say that we're being self-motivated or maybe even somewhat selfish in paying attention to ourselves and zoning out of everything else that is external. And that includes mobile devices, tablets, watches, wearables, whatever it is that is beckoning our attention. We can just remind ourselves, I've made some time for myself, and I'm just going to pay attention to how I'm feeling, how I'm breathing, my posture, my inner well-being. Because that is the foundational bedrock from where we start, is that meditation is an incredibly powerful platform upon which to build our personal regimen of sustainable health, growth and movement that doesn't really need any kind of external stimulation, expensive drugs, specific clothing. All that is extraneous. It's just that, extraneous. And we are going to begin to explore our own intrinsic capability to repair, to restore, and rejuvenate. Let's keep the hands open, very symbolic of our willingness to experience what is happening at this point in time. Let's make sure that we are breathing deeply. And the inhale is an equal measure to the exhale. If you place the right hand on the heart, you'll notice that the heart rate is starting to diminish. So if it was somewhat elevated or elevated earlier, it is slowing down, and that is naturally, that is exactly what we want. Deep breathing is our way of signaling to the body that, okay, we're in a safe place. And this physical form, which is an incredibly complex system, can activate all those processes that slowly begin to understand, explore, and do things that are helpful for balance at the biochemical level, the emotional level, and otherwise. Now that we're feeling a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more centered, a little bit more in the moment, open our eyes. And I'd like to share some content. So there is this diagram of what is referred to as the subtle system. And by that, what we really mean, so this diagram is a representation, or you could say it's a simplification of a depiction that has been around for thousands of years. So probably the oldest references are more than 2000 years old. And it's derived from the early works of a philosopher and researcher, you could say, by the name of Patanjali, who is considered to be one of the forefathers of yoga. And what Patanjali had shared was what he called the Eightfold Path, an eight-prong system for an individual to achieve integrated health and wellness. Of that, one aspect was yoga, which is physical, which is for physical well-being. When I was in high school, I was practicing yoga, and I was suffering from bronchial asthma, and my parents were desperately keen to explore every possible method to try and get me some relief. And one such method was to get a yoga instructor to help me out, learn various postures and techniques to improve my health and immune system. But that was one aspect. So when I reached university, when I started as a freshman for an engineering program, I found this method, Sahaj Yoga meditation. I had the opportunity to listen to a seminar presented by Sri Mataji, who founded this form of meditation you see in the photograph. And she explained this system of meditation, which triggers the body's own internal methods of, you could say, healing, restoration, and also the flow of this inner spiritual energy called the Kundalini. And this is the, you could say, is the secret sauce. So when I mentioned earlier that building habits is difficult, a lot of the times the help that we get from experts is centered around us doing something, right? So let's say if I'm trying to build a habit to improve my golf, then I'll get on the golf stroke, buy the best clubs, work on my posture. So I'm doing something, I'm thinking about it, I'm reading about it, I'm watching videos. But Shmataji introduced something that was quite radically simple, hence the name Sahaja, which loosely translated means simple or easy, which is that the human system, the human body already has the capability to restore, to rejuvenate through the flow of this inner spiritual energy, which is Kundalini. And by that, what I mean is, you'll see, notice that there are three arms of the nervous system that are depicted in this diagram, in the silhouette. So there's a yellow channel, there's a bluish channel, there's a central channel. So most of us are familiar with the fact that we as human beings have what are described as flight and fright responses. So in an emergency, we have a series of biochemical changes whereby we get ready to run away from the predator or from the risk, or to take on the risk in a more combative fashion. But there is also a third aspect which is frequently ignored, which is the central channel. And modern medicine recognizes that we do have autonomic capabilities to control heart rate, control pH levels, acidity levels, to control the immune system to some extent, immune system responses, dilation of the pupils, a whole range of changes that happen without us thinking about them. They just happen. And this is probably one aspect that is less understood, which is the response of this inner spiritual energy, Kundalini. And what I have realized, and Lynn has realized over many, many years of practice, is that when we communicate to ourselves, our own physical systems, that we are now ready to meditate, we're ready to pay attention to ourselves, to become silent inside, the Kundalini works its magic. And that happens without us thinking about it, us concentrating on it, or doing handsprings or any kind of physical gyrations. None of that is necessary. It just happens by itself. And we simply, just as a plant, a flower blossoms without too much of external intervention, we just have to provide the right conditions, peaceful conditions. Similarly, this change happens within us. And that is the objective of today's workshop, is to meditate, experience this state of silence where we typically find a lot of the mental chatter that keeps us disturbed most of the time, most of the day, sometimes even at night, becomes completely or mostly silent. And we feel the flow of this inner spiritual energy, the Kundalini. And as we become silent, we also find a remarkable sense of contentment. I will personally describe it from my experience as a sense of being whole, sense of being complete, and a sense of being empowered. I can't really think of any other words to describe it. I'm sure you will feel similar, if not even better. And in that sense, in that state of inner silence, that is when the building of new habits, or the building of what I call virtuous cycles, begin. So let's assume that our goal, our group goal, or our individual goal is to build a new muscle, or build a new habit of being able to meditate every day in the morning before the cup of coffee, or before looking at the device or checking the news or stock prices of our favorite stock. The first thing that we do is 10 minutes of meditation, paying attention to ourselves. If that is the magic habit that we want to build for this spring, this fall, wherever you are, then I would invite you to try this one. And we're going to start off by what is described as the self-realization method. It's a series of steps. It's designed by Sri Mataji when she was actively sharing this method of Sahaja Yoga meditation throughout the world. Sri Mataji passed away in 2011, but by that point, she had already created a global movement of individuals like myself and Lynn, who have experienced remarkable personal wellness through the practice of this meditation. And we're happy to share that knowledge, primarily because this was her vision, Shrimataji's vision, to create a more harmonious, balanced, and joyful world where individuals are more aware of their own capabilities for peace, joy, and cooperation. So, with that said, that's my cue to actually start the interactive session where we will all go through these steps. You'll notice that there are 9 steps that Lynn is sharing on the document. If there's any burning questions at this point, if there's anything that's top of mind that you think we need to address before we start this journey, feel free to drop a comment or a question in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. If not, we will proceed with this phase. This will take about 10 minutes, and then we will proceed to listen to a recorded segment of a speech where Srimataji from one of her seminars describes the phenomenon of self-realization and meditation. So let's prepare for this phase. Self-realization, described as Atma Sakshatkar in Hindi in India. The ancient traditions were that an individual would prepare himself or herself for long periods of time to leverage this inner spiritual energy, the Kundalini. The remarkably different aspect of Sahaja Yoga meditation is that we begin the process with the experience. We have the opportunity to feel for ourselves the peace and fulfillment without necessarily wrapping our heads, intellectual beings, around phenomenon. We can go straight to the experience and then gradually at our own pace, we can start to peel back the onion. So let's start by placing the right hand on the heart, just as we had a few minutes ago. And again, it's quite remarkable to feel the beating of the heart. I have to say, I'm frequently guilty of completely forgetting and ignoring about the remarkable nature of this instrument, this organ that literally is responsible for keeping me alive, but is also the seat of my spiritual self. Now, as we keep that right hand on the heart, and we have this desire, this intent to feel a relationship with our own inner spiritual self, we notice that there is a sense of calmness that begins to expand. The heart rate remains at a lower level, closer to what would be normal, what would be considered as normal. And we can just remind ourselves that this is my time to meditate. This is me time when I want to pay attention to myself and understand myself better than I already do. We can take the right hand to the middle part of the abdomen where the ribs end. And if you have any confusion, feel free to take a look at the diagram being displayed on the screen. And these locations have a specific connotation in terms of the flow of energy and internal spiritual energy. And we'll discuss some of these aspects at a later stage. But for now, let's just make sure that we have the right hand, middle part of the torso, where the ribs end, and we can sincerely have this dialogue with our own spiritual system, that I wish that it is my goal, my intent, my desire to establish self-mastery, to be my own master, my own guru. The most important input from us at this stage, as we proceed on this journey of self-discovery, is that authentic, unvarnished desire. What is it that we have in our own heart? Not externally impressed, not imposed, but in our free will. What is it that I have in my heart? At this point, I wish to build the habits of greater self-mastery over myself. You can take the right hand to the lower part of the abdomen where the left leg meets torso, corresponding to it is displayed as step 3 in the diagram. Let us have the desire that I wish to know myself better. I wish for that pure desire to explore my own spiritual system, my own spiritual potential. Now let us nurture the flow of this inner spiritual energy. We can place the right hand back in the middle of the torso, where we had placed it earlier, the region where the ribs end. And we can affirm to ourselves, bringing that intellect, the attention, the emotions, all together at this time. Let us affirm, in the light of my own spiritual energy, I am my own master. We can raise the right hand back to the heart and just feel the beating of the heart again. You notice that the heart rate is significantly lower than it was earlier. And let's just have that desire that I wish to experience the joy of my own spiritual self. I wish to experience the peace of my own spiritual self. You can take the right hand to the nape of the neck, the left side. This is where a lot of the stress builds up. You can just massage the shoulder with the right hand. And let's just affirm that I am not guilty at all. Any kind of negative emotions, fear, feelings of guilt that I have done something wrong, I did something wrong in the past, all of these negative emotions become a barrier for the flow of the inner spiritual energy. And this is the time that we let go of those negative emotions. So let's just affirm again, I am not guilty at all. This inner spiritual energy wishes for us to enjoy the moment, to enjoy our own spiritual potential. So we have to consciously let go of all those negative emotions. Then take the right hand to the forehead and just press the temples with the right hand as if we're nursing a headache. You can bow down the head slightly. And this is very important to forgive. Let's use the power that we have. If there's any anger, any reactions that are built up through this day, through the month of July, through early stages of August, any kind of anger against someone, something, an agency, a country, anger is a barrier to inner peace. And so it is that we make the choice to forgive. I forgive everyone and I forgive myself. We can take the right hand to the back of the head and just tipping back the head, we can affirm to ourselves that if there's any mistakes that I have committed, knowingly or unknowingly, please forgive me. In our inner dialogue with the spiritual energy that is Kundalini, let us seek forgiveness for any mistakes that we may have deliberately or inadvertently committed against our own spiritual wellness. And finally, we can place the right hand at the crown of the head, as displayed in the figure 9 of the document being displayed. Just massage the skin of the scalp at the top of the head. And let's have the earnest desire, the sincere desire that please allow me to feel the silence of self-realization. As this spiritual energy, the Kundalini, flows through the nervous system and becomes one with the universal consciousness. You feel the joy, the silence, and the fulfillment of Atma Sakshatkar, knowing our own Atma, the spiritual self. You can allow both hands to rest on the lap. You may notice some tingling sensation, some fingertips. You may notice both hands becoming cool sensation at the crown of the head. You don't need to analyze or react to any of that. Let's just continue to breathe deeply. And there will be a short segment of a video recording playing. We can keep our eyes closed or eyes open, whichever is comfortable. Continue to be in the meditative state. As in the video, some of these principles are explained by the founder, Sri Mataji.
Some of you have found the truth. Some of you have not found it fully, and some of you have not found it at all. But if you look around in today's situation, you will have to admit there's a big turmoil going on. Countries after countries are taking to all kinds of wrong things. Lot of Cold War is on. People are killing each other, destroying beautiful places, cutting each other's throat for nothing at all. They are all human beings created by God. God Almighty has created them and has brought them to this level of human awareness. At this juncture, one can see where are we going in a collective way. This is where have we to reach, or is it our destiny? Is this the destiny of human beings? To be destroyed by each other for land or for anything else? Think of the whole world as one. And think what's happening all over. Every day you read newspaper. Every day there is some sort of a horrible news about horrible things people are doing to each other for no rhyme and reason. We have to think, what is the destiny? Where are we going? Are we going to hell or to heaven? What is our situation around? Can we help it? What's wrong with human beings is they are still in the complete control of ignorance. I would call it ignorance. And in that ignorance, in that darkness, they are doing this horrible thing. Nobody wants to understand that what we are doing is nothing but complete destruction. Is that our destiny? That we are going to get destroyed completely? What good are we doing? Under the name of some sort of nationality or maybe some religion, all kinds of things which are good, but we are doing all wrong things. Fighting is not the only thing. We hate anybody who can excite our hatred is very much adorable, very much liked. And under his guidance, we form groups. All this is coming because this is the last judgment. I have told you, this is the last judgment. And this last judgment will really decide who are to be saved and who are to be doomed completely. It's a very, very serious thing. All of them who are aware should think about it. Little patchwork here and a little patchwork is not going to help. Whatever you may try, unless and until you transform human beings, they cannot be saved. This transformation is not an impossible thing. It's not difficult. This is the time for transformation. This is a chance for transformation. And within us is placed the power, as Tao has described, is the mystical feminine power within us. All of them have described. I am not the first person to say that. But nobody has been able, perhaps so far, to understand it or to accept it, that it should happen to you. You are born not only to be human beings, but you have to be superhuman. You have to enjoy yourself. Your life should be enjoyable. It should be blissful. It should not be a curse. Morning till evening, worried about this, worried about that. That is why you are created. God had no intention of creating people who will be all the time worried how to quarrel, how to fight, how to save. But people who will live in complete harmony, peace and joy. That's why we are created. That is our destiny. That is not just I am telling you, but it's a fact. So we have to be transformed. This transformation is not difficult. But what I find, people get satisfied with anything. Hindus will go to the temple, they'll think, oh, we have done great. Christians go to the church, they'll think they have done very good. Muslims will go and pray and think that they are great. What have they achieved? Face yourself, please. Face your limitations. Face your tribulations. Face your problems and see for yourself, have you been able to solve your problems? Have you been able to save yourself from calamities? Maybe big calamities may come to destroy people who are doing harm. Maybe. That may be the wish of God. But what is your wish? Why don't you think that I have to be a person who is a store, who is a source of joy and love? I'm not only talking, but I want you all to get your self-realization. What is self-realization? It's to know yourself. You don't know yourself. You don't know. You are living in this world without knowing yourself. Can you imagine? You don't know what you are. You don't know that you are the spirit and that you are the source of knowledge, of pure knowledge. I find people sitting in a meeting, listening to some Babaji who is telling them some story, very happy. This is not going to give you the reality and the truth. If you want to have reality and truth, then please try to understand that something has to happen to you, some transformation has to take place. You are not yet subtle enough. You haven't got those subtleties till you reach that point, for which you don't have to leave your family, you don't have to leave your children, you don't have to leave your household and go to the jungles. There's no need to do all that. It's nice to say that, all right, you all take sannyasa and give all that belongs to you to me. It's such a stupid idea. These are emergencies today. We are living in a very emergent conditions. Try to understand. And I want to warn you that if you don't go deep into yourself and find out what you are and take to your transformation, anything is possible. All kinds of diseases are coming up. All kinds of new problems of children coming up. All kinds of national problems are there. All kinds of international problems are there that people can't help it.
Have a few moments silence with our attention at the top of our head where we placed our hand with Shamik a little while ago. You might notice your breathing now is producing a lovely feeling of joy in your heart and peace in your mind. Lovely cool breeze at the top of your head.
Wonderful. Well, Lynn, thank you for coordinating this opportunity to meditate. Always a treat to be able to meditate. I hope everyone in today's session had as great a time as I did. Always a pleasure to be able to meditate and feel this silence. There's a lot of amazing information available on the website. I'm going to post that in the chat window for those who are interested in learning more. But again, I will reiterate that if there's one habit that will be really, really beneficial for all of us, it is that habit to start the day and end the day with meditation. So start the day with the optimism of knowing that we have this remarkable spiritual path to be able to guide us, and to be able to end the day forgiving, forgetting, and moving past all the negative emotions that may have affected us through the day. So I welcome everyone to build a new habit, whether it is fall that is ahead of them or spring. But if there's one habit that we can build, let's build the habit of starting and ending the day with meditation. Thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you all. Thank you, Shamik. That was very nice. You could join us. We hope to see you again very soon. Thank you all.